We have three guests to talk today about the customer experience, specifically from the retail perspective. We have Meri Guylan, who is the Executive Experience Strategy Director at Left Field Labs. We have Gwen Morrison, who is the CEO of the store at WPP Global Retail, and Beth Stiller, who is the CEO of Massage Envy. So Meri and Gwen and Beth, welcome. Thrilled to have you here today. So let me start let's talk about what the notion of customer experience is. And Beth, let's start with you. When you think about reinventing or revisiting the customer experience for this new reality, whatever it happens to be, what's the first thing you start to think of in terms of your actual locations?
Well, I think the reality is, first off, pivoting on the capabilities within the store and how, when shoppers have shifted so much to online purchases, it's really going to raise the new reality of what these formats are going to be moving forward. So, with new emphasis on replenishment, for example, we're really going to reshape what that store experience will be like, because really, do people have to shop those center of the store type of products that they know they want week in or month out versus the kind of more sensory stimulating, idea generating kind of products that they want to navigate? And how are they going to navigate some of that from home as well?
Do you think, will stores by definition be reinventing themselves? Will they simply be, will they be tweaking? I mean, how, for this new reality, and I guess it probably depends on the segment and it depends on the format, but do you think we're going to see stores kind of going back to what the core was? Or do you think we're going to see them kind of spreading their wings a little bit and trying different things?
I think they really have to spread their wings and try. I mean, we heard this first speaker talk about more small stores. I think that's going to be more of the reality. And I think as technologies allow us to experience things as from home and through the store, I think that's going to be really an exciting kind of transformation of retail. I heard Mike George, who heads the Curate Retail Group, the other day predict that we'll see 3 years of innovation in 3 months, which is just an amazing forecast.
Yeah, I know that one of the things that Tom Furphy has talked a lot about is the fact that the last 3 months have propelled us 3 or 4 years into the future.
Absolutely. So I think we're reimagining. I take the capabilities that are core, but there are so many capabilities that aren't going to work moving forward. And that's probably the hardest thing of retail as an industry, because you have capabilities that manage a box and the productivity, if you will, of the box, or as the new omni-channel system. And those capabilities, some will have to be left behind and other capabilities will have to be reimagined.
Beth, are you able to talk?
You tell me, can you hear me?
There you go.
Oh, yeah. There we go. There had to be one, right? Every meeting there's one. Today I'm it. Yeah, so it's an interesting question for our business, obviously. We've got 1.5 million members who come to all of our franchisees' locations for massages or skincare services. So there's no reinventing that, right? You need to make sure that core services is stable, done safely, and of course we've wrapped all kinds of safety around those, but the reinvention for us, and as we reimagine things, it's everything around that service. The experience of, as we reopen locations, customers can't come in to check in. They have to check into the car. So how do you think about a contactless check-in? How do they pay? How do they fill out intake forms? Everything around the business outside of that service that happens one-on-one needs to be reimagined. And fortunately, we started investing in that type of experience over the last couple of years. But there's nothing like an unprecedented experience like this to kind of supercharge your plans and force you to go quicker when you already thought you were going quickly.
And to put your company in some context, how many Massage Envy locations are there around the country, and how many are open at this moment?
Yeah, we've got 1,150 locations in all but one state, and they all closed. Some of them some of them are still closed. We're about almost halfway there. Call it 500 and some odd will be open this week. And
I'm just curious, because you're dealing with it probably more directly than a lot of people. you know when those are going to open? Is it still very amorphous?
Sometimes we get a week's notice, sometimes we get a day's notice. It all depends on the state, the governor, and what's going on as they take a look at their reopening plans. So everyone's ready to go. It's just a matter of getting the green light from the state.
And Meri, talk to us a little bit about what you think is going on in terms of reinventing the retail experience.
Sure. We work with a lot of brands that have a lot of retail brick and mortar spaces, right? And a conversation we've been having with everybody is really, how do we reimagine what that looks like? You know, what do we have in terms of products on the shelves? Like, do we need products on the shelves? And one of the big things we keep coming back to is it's not really about, it's a change of your experience, right? Like we're understanding how to change an experience. So it's not necessarily what we know currently. Everything's shifting so quickly, but the one thing that people are still going to be relying on, we kind of put them in these three pillars of convenience, value, and communication. So everything falls into those three pillars. And how do we shift what falls into that? So as an example, for convenience, safety is huge these days, right? Like that is the number one priority for most retailers. But something that we might not consider is, and saying this as also an owner of a restaurant as well, is that people are more forgiving right now, right? So there's this level of, there's some things that changed for the negative and some things that maybe, you know, there's an opportunity for us to navigate and try some new things, because everybody right now knows we don't have the answer. No one has the answer. And there's that forgiveness that they're allowing. And so brands are able to play in a space that maybe they haven't been able to. Everything had to be perfect, where right now everyone's experimenting and open to different ideas. So we focus a lot on technology because we're a technology company. A lot of what we're really looking at is just how do we transform physical space? When you have thousands of retail locations, and it's clear that people aren't going to be going to those to shop individual products, what does it become? Like, is there an experience we can give them that can highlight that brand's journey? A lot of this also comes to play when we talk about what does the retail associate even look like? Do we need physical associates, or are those associates digital that can then take you through a whole 360 experience and go home with you, right? And then call you later. So there's so much happening in that space right now on the tech side that we're excited to see how that's forming. But it always comes back to our three pillars of convenience, value, and communication.
Interesting, and you made reference to the fact that you own a restaurant. I will tell our audience that you actually own like this totally cool pizza parlor. And when I say a totally cool pizza parlor, smelling great, you know, it's just sensory, right? And yet it's interesting because you have this highly, I don't know, tactile experience in the pizza parlor, and yet you're in the business of bringing technology and bringing that kind of innovation to retail spaces. Is there a revelation? Have you had an epiphany in the last couple of months where you sort of said, that needs more technology, or that needs less technology?
You know what it is? We never put tech as the forefront. So I think at Left Field Labs and just in general, tech's always kind of the avenue of getting somewhere, but it's always looking at that experience. So for us, one of the things at the pizzeria we've learned is people, and I think Jim Donald spoke to this. We've been giving out, selling pizza kits. We've turned our restaurant into a mini store as well, where we sell starter and dough. And the reason why is that their experience changed. So now we're looking at technology of, do we need a van and a website up that maybe we can deliver these based on a geographic zone every day or whatnot, right? But tech is the underlying part. We don't necessarily focus on the tech. We focus on the experience and then look at what tech accompanies that experience.
That's really interesting. I think that's such an interesting, an important point, that restaurants have thought of themselves as being in this business, right? And supermarkets have thought of themselves as being in this side of the business, and yet they both share the final goal of feeding people. And so if you get out of the way of the boundaries that have been imposed on the businesses, and you get out of the discussion of format, and you think about, okay, our goal here is to feed people and help them feed themselves, suddenly started to define your business differently. Is that fair, Gwen?
Yeah, I think that that's part of the capabilities being evaluated and shifting. Just an example, in McDonald's in Australia, they were looking at the fact that they have a drive-through. So even though they're known for hamburgers and fries, they saw the need to distribute key essentials like bread and milk and flour through a drive-through. So that's been what's kind of interesting through this whole process, is that reevaluating what the needs of the community are, your customer in the community that you serve. And retail is always at the heart of a community. They touch the people, they can see things that are going on in neighborhoods. So that's just an example of that being so really nimble and shifting and identifying, what you have and what you can do differently. Partnerships has been another interesting thing to look at.
I think it's such an interesting, the notion that businesses at this point need to be in some ways reductive in terms of reducing things down to their essence, and the way that so many of us have reduced our lives down to their essences over the last couple of months. I think it strikes me as being a really healthy exercise to go through, whether it's SKU count or whatever it happens to be.
Right. So it's kind of like a detox.
Yeah. or rehab, depending on where you're coming from, I suppose. Hey, Beth, I want to come back to something that you mentioned at the top of your comments, where you talked about the fact that you're in a business that requires people to touch each other, right? Or the masseuse to touch the client. How do you make sure there's a level of trust? And I know when we talked before this session, one of the things you said, it's different for the customer than it is for the employee. In some ways, it's a lot more riskier for the employee.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you're a customer and you come in, you're coming in for one service. If you're a therapist who's working a full day or a full week, you're having an exchange with multiple folks. So, trust is obviously, and safety is the most important thing in our business, but it all starts with the therapists and the estheticians, right? Making sure that they're coming back to a place that they know is safe for them. And so we spend a lot of time not only putting together these new protocols and policies, but more importantly, communicating them and making sure that those teams feel confident and comfortable to come back.
We only have a few minutes left, so I want to do a little bit of a lightning round with all three of you. And I want to go back to the notion that Tom Blishek, and I recognize that not everybody was able to see his slides. So one of the things that Tom talked about in terms of de-investing, the whole notion of de-investing to reinvesting. So I'm curious, for the three of you, and very quickly, is there one thing that you think, and I'm going to be broad in terms of retail in general, so you can come at it from any direction you want. Is there one thing that you think that retailers ought to de-invest from, or one or two things that you think that you just strike you as being, they're not core values, they just have dust on them? And let's start with Gwen.
Well, I would say the Sunday circular, or the newspaper circular, is going to go.
Okay, I think that's fair. Now, is that all print? In other words, you'd get rid of print advertising?
Not necessarily all print, but I think we've seen promotional cadence change so much during this pandemic, and the brands, especially FMCG brands, are hesitant to be promoting certain price points as they usually do because of the risk of being out of stock. So everything is being reconsidered, I think, in that particular area when we talk about pricing and value.
Okay. And Meri, what do you think? What's something that retailers want to get away from?
I think the browse experience of when a customer is in a store, less on shelves, maybe the associates, the entire browse experience, I think is going to change.
Okay. And Beth?
This is more of a process. It's the big, complicated pilot of a new idea. We've learned to be nimble over the last few weeks, and I think we need to carry that forward.
Okay, next question. One of the things that Tom told us based on his survey was that 74% of those questioned do not believe that their organizations can adapt quickly enough to a rapidly changing future state. So I want to ask all three of you, what percent of retail organizations do you think are ready to adapt and change for a new reality. Beth, you're on, so I'm going to ask you first. What percent?
I'm going to say 65%.
65%. Meri?
I'm going to say about a quarter.
A quarter. 25%. Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was going to say a pessimist, but let's see what Gwen has to say.
I put it more at 40%.
40%. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought one of the interesting things about Tom's statistics were that 74% did not think that their organizations could adapt quickly enough to a rapidly changing future state. And yet 91% believe that they would be able to compete and grow in the new normalcy, which means I think somebody out there is kidding themselves. Those don't seem to match up. And finally, one of the things that Tom listed was all these different scenarios for the COVID-19 pandemic recovery. V-shaped, U-shaped, swoosh-shaped, W-shaped, or L-shaped. So which shape do you think is most likely? And now, do you think it's V-shaped, U-shaped, swoosh-shaped, W-shaped, or L-shaped? And I can help you if you, since I know some of the slides did not come up, if you need more of a description. Do you?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna do it real quickly. So V-shaped is a virus, is best case virus contained, quick and strong economic growth lasts 1 to 3 months. U-shaped is the virus is contained, but it's slower and moderate economic growth takes place 3 to 9 months. Swoosh-shaped, it's a delayed rebound. It's slow, it takes 9 to 24 months. Double dip, it's a W-shaped, starts and stops, takes up to 18 months. And then L-shaped, which is extremely slow, takes 2 to 5 years. Okay, so we'll start. Meri, you're on. Which one do you think it'll be?
A swoosh shape.
You think it's going to be the swoosh shape, slow, 9 to 24 months. And the second question I want to ask you is, how confident are you in your prediction? 100% certain, 75% confident, 50% hopeful, 25% guessing, or 0% no freaking clue?
I think probably closer to 75%.
75% confident. Okay. We'll go to Gwen, which
I'm also going with the swoosh. I'm also going with the swoosh. But I would say, I mean, we're looking at a horizon that is definitely sort of the 9 to 12 month period. I think a lot of the suppliers that we've talked to are only kind of confident in planning like 4 to 9 months during this kind of a period. So, but I think it could come back again. So that I'm staying with the swoosh, but I would call mine sort of a confident guess. How's that? I'm not a statistician or a medical expert.
And Beth, finally to you.
Sadly, I think it's a W.
W.
Yep. You know what? I hope it doesn't happen, but at least it won't be an unprecedented event anymore, and we'll be better prepared.
And you are, and how confident are you?
Oh, no freaking clue. To be honest, to any of us, really?
Well, you and I are in exactly the same boat. I totally think it's going to be a W, but I also have no freaking clue. So you and I are together on that. Well, listen, we are out of time. So let me once again thank Meri Guylan from Left Field Labs, Gwen Morrison from the store WPP Global Retail, and Beth Stiller, CEO of Massage Envy. We should all go out and get massages at Massage Envy.
Thank you.
And that's it for me. I'm Kevin Coupe. Tom Furphy, over to you.